individual. Most people, rightly, don't give a shit about Harvard. A casual newsreader might have heard of the first black president of Harvard. Then the first black president of Harvard is under threat.
Newspaper out of Harvard is now reporting that their president, embattled President Claudine Gay, is set to resign imminently, reporting she's planning to do so this afternoon. She's been in the position just 6 months. She's now facing lasting criticism about her alleged inability to manage anti-Semitism.
Who are you subtweeting? I'm not even subtweeting. I'm just directly saying I like Bad Empanada's videos, but he is insane on Twitter. Like he tweets like an absolute psychopath, which I think definitely hurts his cause overall. If his goal is to like get people on board with what he's saying, definitely worse than anything I like. It's like if my America Deserved 9/11 moment is like in full display times, and in a very personal way, times 1,000 every single day. Like, he's the troop destroyer type leftist, okay? Which ironically might be one of his fucking old handles.
Across the campus and protect Jewish students. She's also facing nearly 50 accusations of distinct incidents of plagiarism in her publications, her academic publications, all this coming to a head. It looks like this afternoon, Harvard Crimson and the Boston Globe are now reporting that she is going to step aside and announce her resignation imminently.
It may be the plagiarism charges that really take her down here, because Harvard was standing foursquare behind her on the issue of that congressional hearing, and her position on whether or not calls for the genocide of Jews violates any kind of policy at Harvard. That's what took out.
Dude, it's crazy how much Fox News and everybody else that normally, like, if this person wasn't a black woman with short hair, okay, and was a white dude who like raped 1,000 students, okay, and then got away with it, and then they were like, oh, but we found plagiarism, Fox News literally would be like rushing to defend him vociferously, dying at the cancel culture hill. Okay? Now, personally, I don't care. I don't care at all about this in any way, shape, or form. Okay? I don't care. But it is wild to me how much the right just drops this, like, immediately. How much these guys have done campus culture stories and cancel culture stories to just immediately look for anything and everything they can to be like, yeah, we got to take her out. We got to take her out. We got to get a scalp here. That's what we're looking for. And for the record, Chris Rufo very openly took credit for this, too. This piece of shit openly plans and acknowledges everything in media still runs with this shameful. Chris Rufo, exclusive. Real Chris Burnett and I have obtained documentation demonstrating Harvard President Claudine Gay plagiarized multiple sections of her PhD thesis, violating Harvard's policies on academic integrity. This is a bombshell. I launched a Claudine Gay plagiarism story from the right. The goal was to smuggle it into the media apparatus of the left, legitimizing the narrative of the center-left actors who have the power to topple her. And then John McWhorter wrote why Claudine Gay should go. And finally, Harvard President Claudine Gay resigns, shortest tenure in university history. I care. I'm a black female academic working in African history. No, I listen. I know why this happened. That certainly plays a big role in this. That's why I said if this was like a white dude who had, said some unhinged, like truly anti-Semitic stuff, right? Fox News would be defending it. Conceptually, however, I do not do the palace intrigue of the Ivies. I don't care about it as much. I absolutely despise how much emphasis is placed upon stories like this in the media, how much like New York Times readers love reading about this kind of stuff, right? I hate it. I do, however, find it hilarious. I mean, these institutions are overall just a place for the children of the wealthy to network with one another and continue being a part of the ruling class. I despise it. I think it's silly, probably because I didn't go to an Ivy League school. Maybe if I did, I'd have a different perspective on it. Do, however, have a lot of Ivy League friends who, you know, they're fine. Great. And even if they can't keep a job, they still somehow always have like a dude that they can work with at like a hedge fund or something. It is genuinely shocking. But the major reason as to why this like plagiarism stuff happened is because Claudine Gay, like they needed a scalp. They needed to punish at least one of the major private institutions for not being sufficiently pro-Israel and for not necessarily punishing students hard enough for being pro-Palestine, okay? And it's ironic because, like, Claudine Gay herself is, I suspect, much like many of the other college presidents, a Zionist. Or at the very least, she presented herself as such. She presented herself as someone who is pro-Israel, which, of course, very different than, like, the actual academia. I wouldn't say, like, the researchers or the departments are themselves comprised of people who believe in Israel's ethnic cleansing being totally morally righteous, right? But, you know, the people in the administrative side, of course, for the most part, are going to be usually Christian Zionists. The real goal here, however, is that they want to punish you. They want to punish an administrator to, you know, show the rest of the colleges, like, look, we'll fuck you up too. So they pulled on as many threads as they possibly could. Claudine Gay was the one that stuck. Wait, do you agree with her getting fired or not? No, of course I don't agree with her getting fired. She didn't get fired. She resigned. She wasn't the only one who stuck, though. Liz McGill resigned weeks ago. That's another one. Yep, you're right. She resigned. And it's not enough. They're trying to go after, they're trying to take the scalps of every single one that went to that that congressional hearing. They're now going after dude, Bill Ackman is such a psycho. The fact that, like, he is very openly and very publicly going after these college presidents, like, left and right, is insane to me. They're now going after yet another university president, MIT Sally Kornbluth, who also declined to censor pro-Palestinian student speech. They are making it very clear this is about enforcing pro-Israel dogma and nothing else. Yeah. All the plagiarism isn't a good look, though. What plagiarism? I don't even know what that story is. And before you yell at me about it, I don't care. Like, is it fake? Is her entire field fake, or is it real? First, let's establish that. Because right-wingers will be like, what is she studying? African-American studies or some gender queer thing? That's all fake. And then they're like, I can't believe she plagiarized the paper on gender queer studies, which is the most important subject matter to begin with. Like, which one is it? You don't care about any of this, okay? You literally don't care about any of this. You do not care that, like, she missed she didn't properly MLA format her fucking paper from, like, 45 years ago. You don't care. You don't care. And I'm sick and tired of acting like you do care. It's the same principle behind people being like, there was a swim meet in Kansas where a 14-year-old trans girl participated and got 11th place. We need to start jailing every trans person immediately for the sanctity of women's sports. It's like, you don't care. Shut up. You don't care. I hate it. I hate having to be a serious guy for a brief moment. I hate having to learn about these things specifically so I can talk about it. And it's just like, I hate how much of the conversation is dominated by reactionary dipshits all the time. And I especially hate, specifically debate lords do this, okay? The people that claim that they're also progressives, they're also allies, they're also liberals, who then take that framework and literally operate on that framework as though our interlocutors are being honest and just. Oh. I love that these people also personally consider themselves to be so brilliant and so smart, and they love the Socratic method. Okay? They love the Socratic method. They know that truth is, you arrive at the truth in the spirited debates. And it's like, dude, you are literally a squirrel. You're a cat with a laser pointer. It's that easy. I could dangle keys in front of you and shift your attention away. You did it. You did it every time. You, those of you who fancy yourselves to be this incredible, intelligent, critical thinker, okay? Every single time you get duped by the absolute dumbest, most baboon-brained idiot of all time coming into your chat or coming up to you and saying like, we got to talk about trans women in sports, specifically swim meets in Arkansas. Every time you entertain that conversation, you have been duped. They won. The right-wing reactionary that you consider yourself to be infinitely smarter than defeated you. Okay? That's it. Here. New plagiarism allegations that surfaced on Monday against Claudine Gay, leading to her resignation, and threatened to mire Harvard deeper in debate over what constitutes plagiarism and whether the university would hold its president and students to the same standard. The accusations were circulated through an unsigned complaint published Monday in the Washington Free Beacon. My favorite is this one where the big gotchas of the words summarized and ignored. The key to the ecological inference problems is that researchers only observe the marginals in these tables, the final row summarized by DT, final column summarized by X. Goodman's regression is based loosely on the following accounting identity. Adjust the shortcomings of rude. So what is it? So she actually the plagiarism comes from her failing to properly cite someone that she had already cited. Is that what it is? In the same article from 1997, I'm going to lose my mind. And she didn't even, like, so what is it? Under the Goodman framework discussed in this chapter? I guess she didn't, so what? She did not actually source King? I don't understand. There is not a single instance of plagiarism here. They're not even saying the same thing. One of these paragraphs is about crime, and the other is about political turnout. Using cliches like there are two primary reasons is not plagiarism. Externally associated with affordable housing development involves its implications for neighborhood criminal activity. There are two primary ways in which low-income housing development could affect crime. First, new low-income housing may alter the composition of an area's population by displacing current residents and attracting new ones. New affordable housing may attract new residents and displace existing. Wait, that's not... How is that plagiarism? Okay. That's not even an incorrect citation. That's just simply not plagiarism. That's just an idea that I have also brought up many times over because it's factually accurate. Well, not the new affordable housing may attracting new residents displacing the existing ones, but spillovers associated with subsidized housing development extend to political behavior. There are two primary ways in which subsidized development could influence levels of political participation. You plagiarized the law you just didn't know? Yeah, dude, I plagiarized something I've never read before. This part is not plagiarism, but I guess you could say that the other one, if it's improperly cited, the other one that's improperly cited, that could be considered plagiarism. By Harvard's own standards, she plagiarized. Any student doing the type of work she did would face consequences for it. I feel like if you're a student in academia, it's definitely at least a little important to you because there are pretty big consequences for doing the types of things that Gay did. I agree with you about the political motivations being behind her targeting, though. There were more instances of plagiarism by Harvard's own standards. There's this video I came across my YouTube feed. It's the guy talking about your name for no reason. It's clear there's pure jealousy, but it made a comment saying that you don't advocate for trans people because you wouldn't date or have sex with one. I'm not going to watch that video, but that's pretty funny. Yeah. If you compare any two sources on the same topic, you will find small phrases repeated. Writers aren't plagiarizing each other when they say Joan of Arc was burned at the stake. There's just a finite number of ways you can say that. Reusing the phrase Goodman's model is based is not plagiarism. It is citing a source, i.e. the opposite of plagiarism. If media orgs want to rely on bad faith actors like Rufo for their political hits, they should at least double check his work. Yeah, I don't know. Some chatter was, I mean, the one chatter was seemingly much more serious with the accusations of plagiarism. Which again, I don't really care. Never plagiarize is just shameful. There's no excuse for it. Just like forgetting to subscribe before the top of the hour ad break. God damn you. I hope you're happy. God, there's so many people doing the same, plagiarizing the top of the hour. Ironically, many of you are plagiarizing the top of the hour ad break from each other currently, as it stands. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. The new complaint added additional accusations of plagiarism, about 40 that had already been circulated in the same way, apparently by the same accuser. Dr. Gay strongly defended her work. I stand by the integrity of my scholarship, she said in a statement. When the initial plagiarism charges were being circulated by conservative activists online, and Harvard Corporation was considering, God, this is so, God damn it, this is so 2016, 2015, 2014. It's like right-wing death squads at play. This is straight up no different than 4chan. It's literally the same principle. It's just like getting liberals, getting like relatively right-wing liberals to be agitated about silly things that they bring up. Okay? None of this should be treated with seriousness. When a right-wing person, and I say this with all sincerity, if the Washington Free Beacon writes something about you and you take that seriously, you are a clown and a sucker. If right-wingers come up and say like this person needs to be canceled, okay, while simultaneously consistently yelling about cancel culture, and you take them seriously, you are the biggest sucker of all time. The documents by the unnamed accuser the Free Beacon links to on his website show 39 examples of the first complaint, rising to 47 in total in the second complaint. Yeah, this is attack. Find as many like at least sussy takes as you possibly can. Hammer it as hard as you can. Hammer it as hard as you can. Doesn't matter. When you say 47 examples that call into question plagiarism, it doesn't matter if like only 3 of them are correct. Okay? If only 3 of them are like actually failed to cite, right? Like if you failed to cite a source properly. Doesn't matter. Who's going to check? Who's going to look into it? Well, the New York Times is supposed to, but they're not because they're writing about the overall controversy. Okay? She has not been accused of stealing big ideas, but rather of copying language of the papers of other scholars with small changes to substitute words and phrases to arrange them differently. Often the language in question is technical boilerplate. So that means she's not actually stealing the language. She's just doing technical boilerplate language. There is a high likelihood that there is not too much you can do to rephrase technical boilerplate language. What are you supposed to do? My understanding in academia is that once somebody wrote about something, it's like King's X for anyone else writing about it ever. I'm just not sure why I'm supposed to care that she resigned at all. I don't personally care about her resigning at all. I do, however, care about how easily and how quickly the right wing can seize upon any opportunity to take scalps of people that they've identified as their ideological enemies. And the reason why they forced her to resign was because while being a Zionist, she was not sufficiently pro-Israel, like willing to punish enough pro-Palestinian students. That's crazy. If she quoted and cited source material, then it doesn't matter what she uses from that material. The problem is, she didn't do a good job because she is a Zionist. She didn't do a good job of defending Harvard, the institution, just like none of the other college presidents did a good job of defending their own institutes of higher learning, because they themselves are Zionists. So when they were talking to a reactionary psychopath like Elise Stefanik, who said pro-Palestinian sentiment is akin to saying genocide the Jews, they couldn't say, no, that's not correct, because they believe it too. And I said this at the time. They took the weirdest position possible, where they had to be free speech maximalists while simultaneously also considering any kind of pro-Palestinian sentiment to be anti-Jewish. So they ended up saying stuff like, yes, from the river to the sea is also anti-Semitic and means genocide the Jews, and yes, that should be allowed on college campuses. Instead, the argument should be what you are saying does not constitute as hate speech. Is this only in the Ivy Leagues? Can you answer my question right now? Death to Jews isn't hate speech? No, of course death to Jews is hate speech. What are you talking about? The difference is, that's not what the conversation was about. The conversation was about pro-Palestinian sentiment. And pro-Palestinian sentiment is not saying death to Jews. What's going on? This is the problem. The problem is, college presidents themselves are also pro-Israel, agree that saying pro-Palestinian things are inherently anti-Semitic. So they cannot actually respond to that conflation of pro-Palestinian sentiment as anti-Semitic sentiment. Why didn't they just answer, though? Because they're stupid. And you're right. That's the problem. I said this that day. Because it is inherently a I guess moral conundrum that you get to when you are a liberal who is also a ultra-Zionist. You end up finding yourself in this weird conundrum where simultaneously you do want people to be able to freely express themselves about Palestinian liberation and whatnot. Obviously, it's a college campus, right? And you deep down inside do know that that's not, saying from the river to the sea is not genocidal, right? But you also simultaneously have to kind of say, oh, well, maybe it is. I guess it kind of is. So there's two different conflicting thoughts that you have. There's this cognitive bias. This guy writes, the Renberg chair at Northwestern writes, here's my read of what happened with Harvard's president, who I predicted would be out. We are in a dangerous place of political expression in journalism and academia, but with one notable exception, not primarily because of Republicans and right-wingers, but because of Democrats and liberals. At this stage, it's a mistake to think the dangers of free expression as a right versus left, Dem versus Republican matter. Still, elite news media itself often the problem as such and reports mostly on state book bans and idea bans in the U.S. South. Harvard is not the only private university, but the wealthiest in the world. In a blue city, in a blue state. Can't get more classically liberal elite than Cambridge. Democratic mayor, governor, both senators. So apart from the one significant player, this witch hunt was by liberals. Claudine was quickly put to a test with the war on Palestine, and she revealed herself quickly to be a member of what I call the overseer class. Despite being heralded as the first black president of Harvard, she was not there to support black POC students or faculty. Rather, she was there to keep black POC faculty and students, and had she been there long enough, unionizing staff in line. Selected so that when the day came, she would crack the skulls of her own to maintain power, have a nice veneer of respectability, and crack she did. When students admirably spoke up about genocide, President Gay attacked free speech. She conflated anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. Harvard President Gay announces anti-Semitism training, condemns pro-Palestine phrase from the river to the sea, as you can see here on the Crimson. They wrote about it. Then black student Elam Teti Tamaklo was evicted for successfully de-escalating the conflict. Black people around the world begged Gay to intervene. She did nothing. Harvard grad student evicted from campus housing after intervening in the protest. Meanwhile, Gay started an anti-Semitism task force that had no Harvard scholars of anti-Semitism. That's odd. That's the worst part about this, is if that even in a fucking neoliberal shithole like Harvard, okay? Even in any, if you go to any institute of higher learning, doesn't matter if it's, the likes of one that is presented, the presented likes of Henry Kissinger and many other war criminals, right? Even an institution like that is gonna have scholars on anti-Semitism, scholars on Israel, scholars of history, scholars of genocide that are worth their salt, that are going to be intellectually honest. That's it. Because it's still an institute of higher learning, and a very important one. And you still have to teach people things appropriately. Okay? So no matter what happens, there's going to be some serious people on there, and they're going to say, that's ridiculous. They're going to pull the, what do you call it? What's his face? He did it. He talked about it in the Democratic Party, the one who poops his pants. Nadler. When push comes to shove, okay? No matter what happens, you're going to have people who are intellectually honest that will turn around and say, this whole anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism conflation is ridiculous. She said nothing about the destruction of every university in Gaza and the murder of several of her counterparts. Peter Beinart said, why doesn't Harvard's new anti-Semitism task force include its own scholars who study anti-Semitism plus Israel-Palestine? Because those scholars won't endorse a crackdown on pro-Palestinian free speech, which is what donors demand. Remember that. I told you. Remember that. That's the worst part about this story, is that it's outside donors who decided that Claudine Gay is supposed to crack the whip, is supposed to stop free speech from happening on college campuses. Many of those outside donors who consider themselves to be liberals, plenty of them are also reactionary liberals, plenty of them are also conservative. These are the people who fancy themselves to be defenders of free speech. So before turning the next act of this saga, here's the James Baldwin quote about the role of black police officers, which I happily apply to the role of a member of the overseer class like President Gay, because black cops had to work so much harder on your head to prove to himself and his colleagues that he was not like, and I'm not going to say the rest of it, like all the other, famously. Okay, Act 2. The racist dynamics that successfully went after Palestinian students, staff, and faculty at Harvard come for President Gay, because she didn't do enough at this point. Who cares about this, really? All this research is paywalled? No, this is the only aspect of this story that actually matters. Not the fact that, like, Harvard's president is fired or whatever. The fact that an institute of higher learning is especially the most important one, supposedly, okay, decided that the president, who took literally incredibly reactionary actions against Palestinian students, was declared not sufficiently pro-Israel enough and did not do enough to combat all the pro-Palestinian sentiment. Think about that. What are we doing here? We have allowed reactionary psychopaths, some liberal and some conservative, to absolutely eviscerate, gut, and control a institute of higher learning. Come on. And they did it by utilizing right-wing framing, and they did it by utilizing right-wing media. This is very dangerous. This is yet another way of, this is in some ways no different than what Ron DeSantis did in Florida by directly changing the literature, the anti-CRT measures that you saw all around the country. It's a way to manipulate the way people are educated. Academia already is captured. Yes, you're right. It's neoliberal. However, there's still specialties. You can still specialize in stuff. You can still do research. Academia is like the last bastion of heterodox thinking to a certain degree. I know that the overarching goal of these institutions is to put out as many liberals as possible, as many neoliberals as possible, but there's still plenty of avenues for research, plenty of avenues for pushing the needle, and they're shutting that off. But the thing is, until this moment, the forces that would take her down had all been from liberals. Gay herself started an anti-Semitism task force. Mass Government Healy had started a similar task force as the White House. The Senate passed a resolution. Dems won and all. Then you get to Chris Rufo, who says conservatives need to create a strong association between Hamas, BLM, DSA, and academic decolonization in the public to make the center-left disavow them. Well, Gay, Healy, and Biden did exactly this. They did do that. This is what I mean when I say it's so easy to dangle keys in front of the center-left, or I guess not center-left, really. These guys are center-right for the most part. Like, it's so easy to dangle keys in front of neoliberals who will happily jump when reactionaries with like at least a crumb of intelligence say, jump now. They say, how high? Gay survives one vote at Harvard from the Harvard Corporation, their board of trustees. I still predicted she'd be gone before their next term, and it was easy because of Rufo. Look, we launched a Claudine Gay plagiarism story from the right. The next step is to smuggle it into the media apparatus of the left, legitimizing the narrative to center-left actors who have the power to topple her. Then squeeze. They found something, and many of you who care about, many of you who want to appear as though you are impartial to truth will jump at that because you're silly. You want to come across unbiased, and the other side is biased. Ultimately, this is a garbage institution. Claudine Gay, I don't care for. As you can tell, she did a lot of stuff that I disagreed with already. Okay? But understand that when you think you're being impartial and you think that people on the other side are going to see your impartiality and go, well, that guy's moral, he's righteous. Okay? They will not. They will not care. And if you don't get it out of your head immediately that right-wing actors, center-right actors, people who present themselves not as conservatives, but happily, seemingly always align with conservatives for some reason, like Tim Pool, they will always be able to manipulate you every single time because they're biased as hell and they openly will show it in many instances, and their audience knows. Or they present themselves as unbiased arbiters of the truth when they're saying the most biased things you've ever heard. Stop. Yeah, peak lib behavior is playing a game by the rules the other team openly spits on and mocks is exactly what I despise. This is why I always say liberals and leftists as well, because leftists also engage in this. They always end up losing. They always end up losing out to those who very openly are just biased, manipulative. They don't care about anything. is so dumb. Rufo says they launched a gay plagiarism story from the right. The next step is the smuggle of the media apparatus on the left. The narrative to the center left, actors who have the power to topple her. This plagiarism story feels like a whole Gamergate era style attack. It is. It is precisely what that is. It is precisely what that is. It's exactly what that is. We are so in the middle of that exact same era. No Gamergate guy was like, I hate women. That's why I want to send death threats to whatever Anita Sarkeesian for making cringe-ass videos about feminism and Tomb Raider. They said they want to criticize ethics in video game journalism. These guys who are profoundly biased, profoundly reactionary, still know exactly how to present themselves to a broader market. And then they get very comfortable in their politics, and then they start saying stuff that is open. Okay? An example of leftists doing that is when leftists complains about China stealing IP. Yes, leftists do this all the time too. They have reactionary takes in America, especially American leftists. Yes. How many stories did we get from the New York Times about gay and Penn and MIT? The liberal Times moved the liberal dial to force the liberal gay out of liberal Harvard. Stefanik and Rufo could not have done this alone. They were successful because of the moral rot of liberalism. So Act 3, gay resigns. What now? Even though MSNBC et al. Is salivating to say this is a conservative witch hunt, it would be a mistake to stop there. This was caused by a failure of liberalism. Personally, I don't care what happens to gay. I was appalled at her false conflation of anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, her anti-intellectual pandering to donors by culling any scholars of anti-Semitism from her task force, and her coldness to evict the black student, Elam Teti Tamaklo. But of course, if they can get the president of Harvard, they can get anyone. So we must think carefully about what happened and what lessons are to be drawn, because this tactic will be used to target many of us as scholars of who were LGBTQ, black, and especially Palestinian. A wrong lesson would be to frame this as caused by the right-wing attacks on CRT and DEI in the South. The gay saga is like the Penn saga, is dovetailing with those attacks now. But the CRT DEI matters in the South are of Republicans, and the gay one is about Dems and liberals. The difference, however, is that the CRT one is identical in its inception, but the situation with Claudine Gay and the situation within pro-Palestinian sentiment is one that liberals immediately aligned with. That's the problem. Its inception is still ridiculous. It's false moral outrage. Ridiculous claims that this is like absolutely destroying civil society. It's white people claiming that they were under attack. CRT is that. CRT is white people are under attack. Our feelings are hurt when you accurately describe American history from the framework of white supremacy. This is the claim that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. It's a conflation of anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, claiming that the Zionist entity, the Israeli state that is currently engaging in an ethnic cleansing campaign, is actually the victims here. Okay? That's not what CRT is, but okay, lol. No, I don't talk about CRT as like it's legal application, or I mean, sorry, it's legal theory as a framework. CRT just means like black people are human. Imagine if like the slaves during the time of the founding of the United States of America were actually full human beings and had thoughts and feelings and stuff. And then basically writing history from that framework. Anyway, here's some interesting lessons questions I think are more important to liberals, leftists to draw from this. President of Harvard was hired to be an overseer, not to someone to change the power dynamics for black people and women. Can we dream of other models of representation? Why aren't liberals afraid of suppressing speech on Palestine? Might all these laws, resolutions, task forces be turned on liberals when liberals aren't in power? Why do liberals allow donors to call so many shots on what happens on campuses? Why did Claudine Gay think she could use racist techniques to control, conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, suppressing speech, allowing a black student to be expelled for doing the right thing, honor students but evade those techniques coming to her? Yeah. But she couldn't. That's exactly what happened. The very same reactionary forces that she used against her own black and brown students came crawling back up her ass and fucked her. Okay? That's exactly what happened. There you go. That's exactly what happened. The same exact reactionary conflations came back and destroyed her career. Why does mainstream news media sometimes see a threat in the policing of everyday life by Republicans but sees no danger when it's Democrats increasing policing budgets, arresting more black people, deporting more Latinx people, suppressing Palestinian protests? Why is the singular story of Claudine Gay almost exclusively the story of an individual? Most people, rightly, don't give a shit about Harvard. A casual newsreader might have heard of the first black president of Harvard, then the first black president of Harvard is under threat. But to me, the important racial story of Gay isn't her 6 months of breaking some barrier and then being ejected. It is unpacking and understanding the overseer class, why someone is likely selected for that job to do things like hypothetically bust the unions at Harvard, to provide a black woman's face, not just be the fall person, but to hypothetically keep the press public from thinking about the faces of black women janitors and food service workers at Harvard who are being poorly paid despite Harvard being the richest university in the world. Yeah. Why is there so much hate towards Claudine Gay? What have I missed? The hatred comes from her being a figurehead for a neoliberal institution that was a Zionist herself, but wasn't sufficiently Zionist enough in the sense that she didn't sufficiently punish pro-Palestinian protesters. And the more Israel's actions draw a reaction, an understandable reaction from the 18 to 35 demographic who sees it and goes, that's ethnic cleansing, you're insane, the worse it's going to get. Because if you can't control the media in the same way that the State Department always controls media narratives on America's allies, but TikTok is a little bit harder to dominate the narrative on, especially because Israel is just like seemingly untenable and or unmanageable in its endless conquest, then you have to punish people in power a little bit to show others like, hey, listen, if you don't fucking comply, if you don't stop this pro-Palestine shit, like, we'll come for you too. Now let's watch Fox News flex on her.
Liz McGill over at UPenn. The woman at MIT continues in her job, but as the plagiarism charges mounted, that's when she seemed to really...
Look at that. Look at that. They want the MIT they want more scalps. You cannot satiate it. I want more.
Be on shaky ground. And even though noted alums like Pershing Square billionaire Bill Ackman were like really putting a lot of pressure on the college to take her out, they were resisting. So ultimately, this may be what takes it down.
This may ultimately be it, John. Also, the school has not publicly spoken about her tenure since December 12th when they issued the findings, or didn't issue the findings, excuse me. They issued an announcement that she would remain in her role. They said they conducted an investigation into the allegations of plagiarism and were standing by her. They had her edit a couple of her published works with the university to include sourcing that they said was missing. But other than that, they have been standing completely by her. It will be very interesting to see what kind of a statement or public announcement accompanies her resignation over the coming hours. A lot of eyeballs on that.
In terms of the court of public opinion, a lot of people were saying, well, how can you be the president of a university when a student would be penalized for turning in such work?
Boom! Who said that in the chat? Verbatim. That's how media works, baby. That's how it works. From the mouth of a Fox News anchor to the ears of a chatter in the HasanAbi broadcast. Probably a self-declared, self-fancied socialist, communist, Marxist, Leninist, third worldist, Maoist. Fox News said it, bar for bar. I bet you NPR said it. And now you're saying it because you heard it and you're repeating it because you want to sound smart. Think about that. Wow, he made a good point. Hegemonic world peace. I really don't want to ban you, brother. I really don't want to, but you're testing my patience so hard. You never stop. You never stop. I know you're trolling. You're a big troll. I get it. But it's like, it's not that funny. I promise. Please. All day, every day. Oh, my Lord. A micro version of this is people saying you aren't accountable for your mods. Oh, God. Yeah. That. Or any number of different things. Hasan has a house. Hasan has a car. Hasan buys expensive stuff for himself. These are things that you normally would not consider to be like genuinely problematic or anything like that. But if people say it enough times, it becomes a problem, right? It's a problem out there in the orbit. Hasan loves Russia and hates Ukraine. Hasan wants Ukrainians to die, okay? And guess what? Many people are not going to investigate it themselves. They're just going to hear Gucci shirt, Porsche, house, Ukraine, and they're going to go, that guy's real controversial. That guy's real controversial. Chair streams. Hasan doesn't do enough transformative content. All of the things that if you were in here for a long enough time, you would know about. You know what I mean? Can you guess who was bitching about you staying in a nice hotel in Rome? I don't know, but I don't care. And yeah, I legitimately think that it's ridiculous. I think most people don't give a shit about that at this point. But that's it. I don't think most people care. That's like old, the whole like, oh dude, Hasan is rich. Like, I don't think people definitely don't care about that. It's just people that are trying to replay that same bit over and over again as it's dying out. Bro, your haters are saying you're on the verge of a mental breakdown because your views went from 30K to 29.8K. Yeah, I mean, dude, who cares? Why are we talking about random, irrelevant things, okay? Let's get back to the point at hand. The issue is this, okay? Once you say enough things about a person, you can basically you can dominate the conversation. And that's it. And at that point, it's not about the veracity of the claims at all. It's not about that at all. It's not about what the truth is. It's about noise, right? I'm collapsing tomorrow right after China. Exactly. Exactly. If you were in here, at least for an hour, right, you would recognize that most of these problems are completely made up. Completely made up. And that's pretty much it. Bro, try to channel haters out. You're doing a good job. No, I think I'm going to be as charitable as possible to people. I'm going to try to be as charitable as possible this year. 2024, baby. New Year's resolution. So, yeah. It's something to remember. It is a died out phenomena, but it's totally back now. It's totally back.
That was not annotated in the proper way, and quotes weren't attributed in the way that they should have been. So if you're leading the whole place, you've got to lead by example, and a lot of people were saying she wasn't. And
then, of course, she was very much thrust into the international or global.
So are people chill with plagiarism? Is that the argument? Yes, that's the argument. No, that's not the argument. The argument is that there isn't any real severe plagiarism claims here. It's just that if you overwhelm the conversation, if you dominate the conversation, and I know, look, Helm Cletus, you're in here most likely in a bad faith way, but I'm going to do my very best to respond to you in a positive way and try to help you be a little bit more open-minded, because there's probably other people that maybe misconstrued or misunderstood what I had to say. Okay? I'm going to be as understanding as I possibly can and tell you, no. It's not that people are chill with plagiarism. It's that there isn't really enough evidence, it seems, that this was like genuinely harmful plagiarism of any sort whatsoever. But it doesn't really matter because it's more, the narrative builds and it becomes an intriguing story in general. So then people write about the drama in and of itself without actually looking into it. It was not about plagiarism. It was never about plagiarism. It was about her not being sufficiently pro-Israel. Okay? That's it.
Global spotlight last month when she testified here on Capitol Hill and declined to denounce anti-Semitism or even really say that calls for genocide of Jewish people would violate the university's rules and procedures. So all of this now coming to a head for the embattled president.
All depends on the context was the response, which really threw a lot of people.
That's right.
All right. More on this as it comes through, right?
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here.
Trump's criminal turmoil about to overshadow the campaign trail. Yeah, Brian, kill me. Brian, kill myself.